businessman sees beggar in the square and recognizes the woman who once was his fiancée. David Miller was crossing Liberty Square in Denver when something made him stop abruptly. Among the concrete benches, a hunched figure caught his attention in a way he couldn't explain. The woman sat on the farthest bench, tangled brown hair falling over her face, a tattered blanket wrapped around her thin shoulders. But when she lifted her head to watch the pigeons, David felt the world spin. Those green eyes, even dulled by suffering, were unmistakable. It was Sarah, the woman he had abandoned 15 years ago, 3 days before their wedding. "Mr. Miller, are you all right?" asked his driver, Michael, who was carrying some documents for him. David couldn't answer. His legs seemed rooted to the cobblestone pavement of the square. Sarah was unrecognizable. The face that once glowed with youth now bore deep marks of a hard life. The delicate hands he used to kiss were cracked and dirty. "Michael, wait for me in the car," he managed to say, his voice hoarse. The driver hesitated, concerned about his usually stoic employer, but obeyed. David stood there, frozen about 10 feet from the bench, trying to process what he was seeing. How had Sarah, the brilliant medical student he'd met in college, ended up like this? She hadn't noticed him. Her eyes were fixed on a plastic bag beside her, from which she pulled out a stale piece of bread. The careful way she ate, trying to maintain some dignity even in that state, broke David's heart. He took a step forward, then another. Sarah remained unaware of his presence, focused on making the small meal last. When he was just a few feet away, she looked up, and their eyes met. For a moment, time stood still. David saw recognition flash across her face like lightning. Sarah dropped the bread, her hands trembling. She tried to stand, but her legs wouldn't cooperate. "Sarah," his voice came out as a whisper. She turned her face away, hiding behind her tangled hair. With frantic movements, she began gathering her few belongings, stuffing them into a torn bag. "Sarah, please wait." David moved closer. "No, no," she murmured, her voice rough from disuse. "Go away." But when she tried to stand and flee, her legs gave out. Instinctively, David reached out to steady her, but she flinched like a wounded animal. "Don't touch me," she shouted, drawing glances from others in the square. David stepped back, his hands still hovering in the air. Sarah managed to stand, gripping the back of the bench for support. Up close, he could see that her dress, though clean, was faded and patched in several places. I just want to talk," he said, trying to keep his voice calm. "Talk?" Sarah let out a bitter laugh. "Now you want to talk after 15 years? The pain in her voice was palpable. David felt the weight of every choice he'd made, of every unspoken word. "Sarah, what happened to you? How did I end up like this?" she finished, finally meeting his gaze. "Is that what you want to know? So you can feel better knowing the woman you left at the altar became a beggar?" David flinched at the word. Beggar. Sarah, who had dreamed of being a neurosurgeon, who spent nights studying beside him in the library, who had the most beautiful smile he'd ever seen. "I don't want you to feel bad," she continued, her voice gaining strength. "You can walk away with a clear conscience. I've survived without you all these years. I'll keep surviving." She stepped to the side, trying to move past him, but David blocked her path. "Sarah, please. At least let me help you." "Help?" Her green eyes flared with long-dormant anger. "You want to help me? Where was that help when I needed you? When I waited 3 hours at the church with 200 guests, thinking you'd been in an accident?" Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us just starting out. Now back to the story. Her words cut like knives. David remembered that day with crystal clarity. His cowardly decision to run away, to board a bus to New York and disappear without a word. His fear of commitment, of not being good enough for her, had won out. "I was a coward," he admitted, his voice thick. "I know nothing I say can change what I did, but—" "Then don't say anything," Sarah interrupted. "Just let me go." But when she tried to take another step, she swayed. There was weakness in her movements, a fragility that went beyond emotion. David noticed how thin she was, how her hands trembled. "When was the last time you had a real meal?" he asked. Sarah didn't answer, just clutched the bag tighter against her chest. "At least let me buy you lunch," David insisted. "Please, just lunch." "I don't want your charity." "It's not charity, it's the least I can do." Sarah studied him for a long moment. He could see the battle in her eyes, pride warring with need. Finally, she gave in, just a little. "I won't go anywhere with you," she said, "but if you want, you can buy a meal from old Joe's place." She pointed to a diner across the square. "I'll wait here." David nodded quickly, afraid she'd change her mind. He crossed Liberty Square almost at a run, stepping into the small diner. The owner, an elderly man with white hair, greeted him. "What can I get you, Mr. Miller?" "2 meals. The best you've got." As he waited, David watched Sarah through the window. She had sat back down on the bench, her body hunched as if carrying the weight of the world. Other homeless people passed by, some nodding to her, and she responded with small gestures. There was a community here, David realized, a parallel world existing on the same streets he walked every day without seeing. He returned with the meals and 2 bottles of juice. Sarah took only 1 meal, refusing the juice. "Tap water is free," she said simply. David sat on the bench beside her, keeping a respectful distance. He opened his own meal, though he wasn't hungry. Sarah ate slowly, with a dignity that was both heartbreaking and moving. "You were studying medicine," he ventured. "What happened?" Sarah stopped eating, staring at the horizon. "Life happened," she finally answered. After that day, I tried to keep going, but it was hard. Everyone looked at me with pity, whispering in the halls of the university." David hung his head, shame heavy on his shoulders. "I took a semester off," she continued. "Said I'd go back, but my father had a heart attack. The medical bills piled up. Then my mother developed early-onset Alzheimer's. Suddenly, I was responsible for both of them." "Sarah, I'm so sorry." "Don't," she cut him off. "I got a job as a nursing assistant. Not what I dreamed of, but it paid the bills. For 5 years I took care of them. Worked days, cared for them at night. When they passed 6 months apart, I thought I could finally start over." She let out a humorless laugh. "But the medical debts had piled up. I lost the house, the car. I tried to keep the job, but how do you keep a job when you have nowhere to shower? No permanent address?" David felt sick. While he was building his business empire in New York, Sarah had lost everything taking care of her parents. "It's been 3 years since I've been on the streets," she concluded. "At first I thought it was temporary, that I'd be able to get back on my feet. But with each passing day, it gets harder. People don't see you as human when you're like this." "But you have family, friends." "I did," Sarah corrected. "It's amazing how people disappear when you need them most. My cousin Emily said she couldn't help me because her husband wouldn't like it. My college friends, well, they moved on with their lives. I don't blame them. It's embarrassing to have a beggar for a friend." David closed the food container, unable to keep eating. He pulled out his wallet, but Sarah immediately stepped back. "No," she said firmly. "I don't want your money." "Sarah." "No." She stood up, the food only half eaten. "Thank you for the meal, but I don't want anything else from you, David. It's bad enough having to live with the humiliation of you seeing me like this." "It's not humiliation." "Isn't it?" she challenged. "Then why do you have that pitying look? Why are you trying to give me money like I'm some problem you can solve with a $100 bill?" David put his wallet away, realizing his mistake. "I'm sorry, I want to help." "Why?" Sarah took a step toward him, her eyes filled with unshed tears. "Why now? Why after 15 years do you want to help? To ease your conscience? To sleep better at night knowing you tried?" "Because I never forgot you." The words slipped out before he could stop them. "Because every day since that damn day I've regretted it. Because I was a coward, an idiot, and I destroyed the best thing I ever had." Sarah recoiled as if struck. For a moment her face softened, and David caught a glimpse of the woman she had been. But it was only a moment. "Words," she said bitterly. "You were always good with words. Too bad they don't pay rent or buy medicine. She started to walk away, but David followed her. Give me a chance to try and fix this. Fix it? Sarah stopped and turned. You think this can be fixed? That we can turn back time and undo everything? I lost 15 years of my life, David. 15 years. I know. No, you don't, she exploded. You don't know what it's like to wake up on the cold ground, not knowing if you'll eat that day. You don't know what it's like to be kicked out of places because your appearance offends customers. You don't know what it's like to be afraid to sleep because someone might steal the few things you have, or worse. Her voice broke. David saw the moment all the strength she'd been showing crumbled. Sarah covered her face with her hands and began to cry. Not delicate tears, but deep sobs from years of pent-up pain. Without thinking, David pulled her into his arms. For a second she resisted, then gave in, crying against his expensive suit. I had a wedding dress, she sobbed. My mother spent months embroidering every detail. I kept it for years, you know. Even when I needed money, I couldn't sell it. Then one day, at the shelter, it was stolen. They stole my wedding dress, David, the last thing that reminded me of when I had hope. David held her tighter, his own tears falling silently. People passed them in the square, some looking curiously, others turning away awkwardly. Let me help you, he whispered. Please, not as charity, not out of pity, but because I owe you this, because I love you. Sarah pulled away, wiping her face with the back of her hand. You don't owe me anything, she said, her voice hoarse. What happened to me wasn't your fault. They were my choices, life's circumstances. You're not responsible for that. But if I hadn't run away, if you hadn't run away, maybe none of this would have happened. Or maybe it would have happened the same way. There's no way to know. Sarah picked up her bag. Life doesn't have a rewind button, David. You can't fix the past. But you can build a future, he insisted. Sarah shook her head, a sad smile on her lips. Future? Look at me, David. What future does a 40-year-old woman with no job, no papers, nothing have? No papers? Everything was stolen 2 years ago. ID, social security card, diplomas, everything I had kept in a backpack. Do you know how much it costs to replace all that when you don't have a fixed address? When you can't even prove who you are? David ran a hand over his face, the weight of Sarah's problems becoming clear. Where do you sleep? Here and there, she shrugged. There's an overpass near the bus terminal that's relatively safe. When it rains too much, I try to get a spot at the city shelter, but it's hard. There are too many people in need. Sarah, you can't keep living like this. And what do you suggest? There was a challenge in her voice. That I move in with you? That you support me for the rest of my life? That's not living, David. It's humiliation. No, that's not it. He searched for the right words. But I can help you get back on your feet, get your papers, a temporary place to stay, a job. What clothes would I wear to a job interview? Sarah pointed to her worn-out dress. What address would I put on an application? You don't understand, David. It's not just about wanting to. The system isn't made for people like me to come back. A street vendor passed by, offering water. Sarah waved at him. Hi, Jimmy. How are you? All good, Miss Sarah. Need anything? No, sweetheart, thank you. The young man went on his way. David noticed the respectful way he treated her. You know a lot of people here, he observed. The streets have their own rules, Sarah said. We help each other however we can. Jimmy sometimes saves me bread at the end of the day. Miss Betty over at the newsstand lets me read old newspapers. Small kindnesses make a difference. But it's no way to live. It's my life, she cut him off. The one I have. And as hard as it is, I still have my dignity. David admired her strength, even as his heart broke seeing what she'd become. You said you worked as a nursing assistant for 5 years, until I lost everything. Do you still remember? I mean, could you still work in that field? Sarah let out a bitter laugh. Could I? Maybe. But who would hire someone with no papers, no proof of experience, nothing? Besides, look at me. Who would trust someone who looks like this to take care of patients? David had an idea. He pulled out his phone. What are you doing? Sarah asked warily. Calling my lawyer. He can help with the paperwork. David, no. Please, he interrupted. Just this. Let me at least fix the paperwork. Without papers, you have no chance. With them, at least there's a possibility. Sarah bit her lip, clearly wrestling with her pride. And how much will this cost? Nothing. For you, nothing. There's always a price, she said quietly. I learned that the hard way. The only price is giving me the chance to try to make up even a little for the harm I caused. Before Sarah could answer, David's call was picked up. Attorney Johnson? It's David Miller. Yes, I know it's Saturday, I'm sorry. But it's urgent. I need your help with some paperwork. Sarah watched as he explained the situation to the lawyer. When he hung up, David turned to her. He can meet us Monday. Says we can sort it all out, just need some information from you. Monday? I don't know where I'll be, Sarah said. Then meet me here at the square, noon, please. She hesitated for a long time before nodding. All right, but only because of the documents. I need them either way. David smiled for the first time since he'd found her. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Sarah said, grabbing her bag. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go. Where? I have to get to the overpass early if I want a safer spot to sleep. David's heart clenched. Sarah. Monday noon, she cut him off. If I don't show up, don't come looking for me. It means I changed my mind. She started to walk away but stopped and turned back. David, thanks for lunch. It's been a while since I had a hot meal. With that, she was gone, leaving David standing in the middle of Liberty Square, the weight of 15 years of regret and the determination to do something about it battling in his chest. He returned to the car, where Michael waited patiently. Heading home, Mr. Miller? No, David said, still looking in the direction Sarah had gone. To the office. I have some calls to make. As the car pulled away from the square, David was already planning his next steps. Sarah might resist, might fight his help, but he wouldn't give up. Not this time. 15 years ago, he'd been a coward. Now, he had the chance to make things right. The weekend passed slowly for David. He barely slept, the image of Sarah in that state haunting him. On Sunday, he returned to the square, hoping to find her, but she wasn't there. He spoke with some street vendors, trying to learn more about her. Miss Sarah's a good soul, said old Joe, the owner of the snack stand. She showed up here about 3 years ago. At first we were surprised, you know? A well-spoken, educated woman like that, living on the streets. But she never asked anyone for anything, only accepts help if she can pay it back somehow. Pay it back how? Oh, she helps however she can. Just the other day, she helped Zeka's wife when he fell sick. Knew exactly what to do. Gave him CPR until the ambulance arrived. Saved his life. David felt a mix of pride and sadness. Sarah was still using her medical knowledge, even in such dire circumstances. Monday arrived with a light drizzle. David reached the square 15 minutes before noon, anxious. He'd spent Sunday organizing everything with the lawyer, even contacting the hospital where Sarah had worked to get verification. Noon came and went. Sarah didn't show. David began walking around the square, searching. Half an hour passed. An hour. Just as he was about to give up, he saw a figure approaching slowly. Sarah was walking with difficulty, limping slightly. What happened? He asked, going to meet her. Nothing. She avoided his gaze. Tripped. David noticed a cut on her eyebrow, partially hidden by her hair. Sarah. It's nothing, she insisted. Just life on the streets. Happens. He decided not to press, but made a mental note to look into it later. The lawyer's waiting at my office, it's nearby. Sarah glanced at her clothes. I can't go into an office like this. Yes, you can, and you will. Come on. David's office was in a modern building 2 blocks from the square. Sarah hesitated at the entrance, clearly uncomfortable. The security guard eyed her suspiciously, but a nod from David was enough to let her through. In the elevator, Sarah shrank into the corner, avoiding her reflection in the mirror. 15th floor, David said gently. The lawyer's a good guy, don't worry. Attorney Johnson waited for them in the conference room. He was a middle-aged man with a paternal demeanor. If he was surprised by Sarah's appearance, he didn't show it. Miss Sarah, a pleasure. Let's get this document issue sorted. Do you remember your social security number? Of course, Sarah recited the numbers from memory. Great. And full date of birth, parents' names? For an hour, Sarah answered questions, providing information. David discovered she had been born in Savannah, the daughter of a university professor and a visual artist, a middle-class family that had invested everything in their only child's education. With this information, I can have all the documents ready in a week, the attorney said. ID, social security number, even your college transcripts. The diploma will take a bit longer, but it's possible. How much will it cost? Sarah asked. It's already taken care of, Johnson replied, exchanging a glance with David. Sarah turned to David. I said, I don't want charity. It's not charity, David answered calmly. It's justice. I owe you much more than this, Sarah. She seemed ready to argue, but the attorney intervened. Miss Sarah, if I may, documentation is a basic right. You'll need these regardless. Consider it an investment in your future. Sarah nodded reluctantly. When they left the office, the drizzle had turned into rain. David offered her a ride, but Sarah refused. I need to get my things from under the overpass before they get soaked. I'll go with you. No, she said firmly. David, I appreciate what you did today, but my life is mine. I don't want you to see. You don't need to see where I sleep. But in this rain, I've survived many rains. I'll survive this one too. She started to walk away, but David gently grabbed her arm. Wait, at least. He pulled a card from his pocket. My number, if you need anything, anything at all. Sarah took the card, looked at it for a moment, then tucked it into her pocket. The attorney said the documents should be ready by next Monday, David continued. Can we meet here again? Maybe. Sarah, I said maybe. She pulled her arm free. I'm not promising anything. And once again she disappeared into the rain, leaving David with 1,000 unspoken words on the tip of his tongue. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. The week passed slowly. David found himself driving near the bus terminal, searching for Sarah among the groups of homeless people. He even got out of the car a few times, asking if anyone had seen her, but the answers were evasive. On Thursday, his phone rang from an unknown number. David? Sarah's voice was weak, barely a whisper. Sarah, where are you? I need... She coughed, a dry, painful sound. Sorry to bother you. Where are you? He repeated, already grabbing his car keys. At the health clinic, in downtown. They won't see me without documents. David was already in the elevator. I'm coming. Hang in there. He arrived at the clinic in 15 minutes. Sarah was sitting in a corner of the waiting room, shivering despite the heat. She was pale, her eyes feverish. How long have you been like this? He asked, kneeling beside her. 2 days, maybe 3. David went straight to the front desk. This woman needs urgent medical attention. Sir, as we explained to her, without documents, I'll take responsibility, David cut in. I'm David Miller of Miller Enterprises. You can call my office to confirm, but she needs to be seen now. Maybe it was the name, maybe the tone of authority, but it worked. Within minutes, Sarah was being taken for treatment. David waited, pacing back and forth. An hour later, a young doctor came to speak with him. Are you related to the patient? I'm a friend. How is she? Pneumonia, likely from exposure to cold and rain, combined with malnutrition. We'll need to admit her for a few days. Do whatever's necessary. Sir, Medicaid covers the basics, but put her in a private room. I'll cover all costs. The doctor nodded and walked away. David stood there, processing. Sarah, sick, vulnerable, needing him. It was ironic how life turned around. He managed to see her briefly before they took her to the room. She had an IV in her arm, oxygen in her nose. You didn't have to... She tried to speak. Shh. Rest. We'll talk when you're better. David. Her eyes were filled with tears. I was so scared of dying alone. He held her hand, feeling the fragile bones beneath her skin. You're not alone. Not anymore. Sarah closed her eyes, weakly squeezing his hand before falling asleep. David spent the next few hours making calls, arranging everything. When he finally left the hospital, it was night. But there was something he needed to do. He drove to the underpass area Sarah had mentioned. It was a dark place with dozens of makeshift tents and mattresses on the ground. The smell was strong, a mix of urine, mold, and despair. "Looking for someone?" A man approached, suspicious. "Sarah's things. She's in the hospital. Asked me to get them." The man relaxed a bit. "Sarah's sick? Poor thing. Come, I'll show you where she stays." Sarah's spot was a relatively sheltered corner with an old mattress and a few belongings neatly packed in bags. It was clean as much as possible, and there were some old books carefully stacked. "She was always different," the man commented. "Polite, you know. Helped everyone she could. Even taught the kids here to read sometimes." David gathered her belongings, his heart heavy. Among the few clothes, he found an old faded photo. It was of the two of them, embracing, taken at a college party. She had kept it all these years. At the hospital, Sarah spent 3 days between getting better and worse. David alternated between work and visits, bringing flowers, magazines, anything to cheer her up. On the 4th day, she was finally well enough to talk. "I brought your things," David said, showing her the bags. Sarah looked relieved. "Thank you. I was afraid they'd be lost." "Sarah, we need to talk about what happens when you're discharged." She looked away. "I'll go back to the underpass." "No, you won't," David said firmly. "You almost died. I won't let you go back to the streets." "Then what do you suggest? I already said I won't accept charity." "It's not charity, it's... Let me take care of you until you fully recover. Then we'll see." "David, please," he begged, "just until you're better. I have an empty apartment, an old investment. It's near downtown. You can stay there temporarily." Sarah fought back tears. "Why are you doing this?" "Because I love you." The words came out before he could stop them. "I never stopped loving you. I know I have no right to say that, not after what I did, but it's the truth." Sarah began to cry silently. "Don't do this to me," she whispered. "Not now. Not when I'm like this, weak, defenseless. I'm not trying to take advantage." "I know," she interrupted. "That's why it hurts so much, because I, too..." She stopped, unable to continue. David moved closer, sitting on the edge of the bed. "We lost 15 years, he said softly. "We can't get them back. But we can try to build something new, even if it's just friendship. But let me help you out of this situation." Sarah closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face. "Okay," she finally said, "but with conditions. I'll accept staying in the apartment temporarily, but as soon as I get a job I start paying rent and I'll pay back every cent you spent on me." "Sarah, those are my terms," she said firmly. "Take it or I go back to the underpass." David nodded. "Deal." 3 days later, Sarah was discharged. The lawyer had secured her basic documents, which made everything easier. David took her straight to the apartment he'd mentioned. It was a simple but comfortable place, furnished. Sarah walked through the rooms as if in a dream. "There's hot water," David pointed to the bathroom. "The fridge is stocked. I left some clothes in the bedroom. I hope they fit." Sarah touched the faucet as if it were something precious. "Hot water," she repeated softly. "You have no idea what it's like to take a hot shower." "Sarah," she turned to him, her eyes shining. "Thank you," she said simply. "I know I said I'd pay you back, and I will. But thank you." David nodded, too moved to speak. "I'll let you rest. My number's on the table. Call if you need anything." He was at the door when Sarah called out, "David, would you have dinner with me tomorrow? I mean, if you're free. It's been so long since I've cooked. I'd love that." He smiled. "What time?" 7. "I'll be here." David left the apartment with a light heart for the first time in weeks. It was a beginning. Small, fragile, but a beginning. The next day, he arrived promptly at 7. Sarah had showered, her clean hair tied in a simple bun. She wore one of the outfits he'd left, a plain blue dress that brought out her eyes. "You look..." he began. Different? She finished with a shy smile. It's amazing what a shower and clean clothes can do. The apartment smelled of home-cooked food. Sarah had prepared a simple but thoughtful dinner. Where did all this come from? David asked. I went to the store, she admitted. Used a little of the money from the drawer. I wrote down every penny, see? She showed him a small notebook where she'd recorded each expense. Sarah, you don't have to. Yes, I do, she cut in. For my own peace of mind, I do. They ate, chatting about light things. Sarah shared stories from the streets, some funny, some heartbreaking. David talked about his company, the challenges of building a business from scratch. You made your dream come true, Sarah observed. You always wanted your own company. Yeah, but I lost other things along the way. An awkward silence fell between them. Sarah stood to clear the plates. Let me help, David offered. They washed the dishes together side by side, just like in the tiny apartment they'd shared during college. The closeness brought back memories, and David saw the same recognition in Sarah's eyes. It was like this, she murmured. Remember? You washed, I dried. And we'd argue over which movie to watch next, David added. You always wanted action, I wanted romance. And we'd end up watching a documentary because we couldn't agree. They laughed, a light but nostalgic sound. David, Sarah said suddenly, why did you run away? Really, I deserve to know. David dried his hands slowly, searching for words. Fear, he admitted finally. Pure and simple. Your family was all doctors, educated people. I was just a poor kid who got in on a scholarship. I thought I wasn't good enough. But I loved you. I know. But love didn't feel like enough back then. I thought you deserved better. Sarah shook her head. You know what's ironic? My family disowned me when they found out I was marrying you. Said I was throwing my future away, but I didn't care. I chose you. David felt the weight of her words. And I ran. Yeah, you ran. Sarah wiped away a stubborn tear. And my family never forgave me for insisting on the marriage against their wishes. When I needed them years later, they turned their backs. Sarah, I'm so sorry. No, she raised her hand. No more apologies. What happened, happened. We can't change it, but we can try to understand. And maybe, just maybe, find a way forward. David nodded, hopeful. I'd like that. But slowly, Sarah warned, a lot has changed. We've changed. I need to find myself again before thinking about anything else. Of course. Take your time. Sarah smiled, a genuine smile that lit up her face. Now tell me, she changed the subject. What's it like being the great businessman David Miller? They spent the rest of the evening talking. When David finally said goodbye, it was almost 11. Thanks for dinner, he said at the door. Thank you for everything, Sarah replied. There was something in the air between them, a tension, a possibility, but neither of them made a move to act on it. It wasn't time yet. The following week settled into a routine. David visited Sarah regularly, always with some excuse, bringing groceries, checking on the apartment, delivering mail from the attorney. Sarah, for her part, tackled the job search with determination. With her documents in hand, she began looking for healthcare positions. Look at this, she showed him a newspaper ad one day. Mercy Hospital needs a nursing assistant. I'm going to try. Great. Want me to take you? No, Sarah was firm. I need to do this on my own. David understood. It was a matter of dignity, proving to herself she could do it. On the day of the interview, Sarah left early. David spent the day anxious, resisting the urge to call. At 4 in the afternoon, his phone rang. I got it. Sarah's voice was full of joy. They hired me. I start Monday. Sarah, that's wonderful. We have to celebrate. Yes. Come over for dinner tonight. I'll make something special. That evening, Sarah was radiant. The job didn't pay much, but it was a start. More importantly, it was hers, earned on her own merit. You know what the head nurse said? Sarah shared excitedly. That it had been a while since she'd seen someone with so much hands-on experience. Little does she know, I learned, by taking care of people on the streets. You've always had a gift for caring for others. I think it's the only thing I know how to do well. Sarah grew serious for a moment. Taking care of others has always been easier than taking care of myself. But now you're taking care of yourself too. I'm trying, she smiled. One day at a time. Working at the hospital gave Sarah a renewed sense of purpose. She came home tired but satisfied, full of stories about patients and co-workers. There's a lady in room 204, she shared one day. Mrs. Robinson. She reminds me of my mother. Same stubbornness, same way of complaining about hospital food. David listened, happy to see her so animated. Do you miss them? Your parents? Every day, Sarah admitted. But now I can remember the good things, not just the hard ending. It's progress. After 2 months on the job, Sarah insisted on starting to pay rent. Sarah, you don't have to... I do. She showed him an envelope. It's not much, but it's a start. And here, another envelope. The first installments for what you spent on me. David reluctantly took the envelopes. He knew arguing would be pointless. Later, he'd deposit the money into a savings account in her name without her knowing. One Sunday afternoon, Sarah suggested a walk. It's been a while since I've been to Central Park, she said. Want to go? They strolled along the tree-lined paths, Sarah pointing out trees and sharing the medicinal properties of certain plants. I learned a lot of this from an old man who lived on the streets, she explained. Old Ben. He was an herbalist before he lost everything. Taught me which plants helped with pain, which ones were good for fever. You talk about him in the past. Sarah lowered her head. He passed away last winter. Pneumonia, almost like what almost happened to me. They sat on a bench near the lake. Families strolled by, children ran around. Life moved on as usual. Sometimes it feels like a dream, Sarah said. Being here, clean, fed, with a job. I'm afraid I'll wake up and find myself back under the overpass. It's real, David assured her. You earned this. With your help. You would have made it anyway. I just sped up the process. Sarah turned to face him. Why did you never marry, David? The question caught him off guard. How do you know I didn't? You don't wear a ring. You never mention a wife or kids. And... She hesitated. I looked you up. When I was on the streets, I'd sometimes go to the public library to use the internet. I followed your life through business news. David was moved by her admission. I had a few relationships, but I never could. He searched for the right words. I think part of me always knew I'd left the right person behind. The silence between them was heavy with unspoken possibilities. David, Sarah began, but was interrupted by a voice. Sarah? Sarah, is that you? A well-dressed woman approached, her eyes wide with surprise. Sarah tensed. Jennifer, she said simply. Oh my God, Sarah, it's been years. You disappeared. The woman seemed genuinely shocked. We looked everywhere for you after your mum. Yeah, Sarah cut her off. Life happens. David noticed Sarah's discomfort. Jennifer did too. Listen, are you okay? I mean, you look good. I'm great, Sarah forced a smile. Working, living, and you? Oh, I married Robert, remember him? 2 kids. We live in Beverly Hills now. Jennifer chattered, clearly uneasy. She finally left with vague promises to call, which everyone knew wouldn't happen. When she walked away, Sarah was pale. Cousin, she explained to David. Mum's side. One of the ones who vanished when I needed them. Do you want to leave? No. Sarah straightened her shoulders. I'm not running anymore, or hiding. I survived the worst. Awkward reunions won't break me. But the encounter had changed the mood. They returned home in silence, each lost in thought. That night, David got an unexpected call. David? It's Jennifer, Sarah's cousin. I got your number from a mutual acquaintance. What do you want? Look, I know I have no right to ask, but what happened to her? I mean, is she really okay? David felt anger rise. Why didn't you ask that 3 years ago when she needed help? An uncomfortable silence. It was complicated. My husband, the whole family was in a tough spot. Sarah was in a tougher spot. She lived on the streets, went hungry, almost died. Where were you?" "Oh my God," she whispered. "We didn't know. You didn't know because you didn't want to. Goodbye." David hung up. People's hypocrisy still surprised him. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us newcomers. Now back to the story. The next day, he told Sarah about the call. "Typical," she said without surprise. "Now that she's seen me clean, well-dressed and with you, she wants to know what happened. If she'd run into me while I was still on the streets, she'd have crossed the road. You don't seem hurt." I was, a lot. But the streets teach you one thing, David. Everyone fends for themselves, family, friends, it's all circumstantial. In the end, you can only count on yourself. I don't believe that's true. You said yourself there was solidarity on the streets. There is, among equals, among people who understand the struggle, but it's not the same. It's mutual survival, not love. And love? Do you still believe in it? Sarah held his gaze for a long moment. I'm learning to believe again. 3 months passed. Sarah had settled into her job, even earning praise for her dedication. She insisted on paying her share, kept the apartment spotless, and slowly regained her confidence. One Friday, she came home more excited than usual. I got promoted, she announced when David arrived for their weekly dinner. I'll be coordinating the night shift in the pediatric wing. Sarah, what wonderful news. And I'm getting a raise. She was beaming. It's not much, but it's enough to start thinking about maybe renting my own place. David felt a knot in his stomach. You want to move out of the apartment? It's not that I want to, Sarah explained, but I can't rely on you forever. I need to move forward with my life. What if, David hesitated, what if your life included me? Sarah stopped setting the table, her hands trembling slightly. David, I know I said I'd take it slow. He stepped closer. And I gave you space, but Sarah, these months, being close to you again, watching you rebuild yourself, your strength, your dignity, it only confirmed what I've always known. I love you. I never stopped loving you. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. It's not fair, she whispered. You say this now when I'm vulnerable, grateful. No, David interrupted. You're not vulnerable. You're stronger than ever. And I don't want your gratitude. I want your love. If there's any left. Sarah struggled for words. David, I carried this love for 15 years, even when I shouldn't have, even when it hurt too much. But now, I'm scared. Of what? Of giving myself to you again, and you... She couldn't finish. Running away? David finished for her. Sarah, look at me. She raised her eyes, tears streaming down her face. I was a coward once, just once, and I've paid for it every day since. But I'm not that scared boy anymore. And you're not that girl who needed her family's approval. We're different now. We can write a new story. Sarah was sobbing now, years of pain and buried love overflowing. I love you, she confessed. God help me, but I never stopped loving you. I tried to hate you. I tried to forget, but I couldn't. Even at my lowest, when I was at rock bottom, all I had to do was close my eyes to remember your smile. David pulled her into his arms, and this time she didn't resist. They held each other, crying together. 15 years of pain and regret washed away by tears. When they finally calmed down, Sarah pulled back slightly to look at him. But I need time, she said. I can't just jump back to where we left off. Too much has happened. I need to be sure I'm doing this for the right reasons. Take all the time you need, David assured her. I'm not going anywhere. And I need to stay independent, Sarah continued. My job, my bills. I don't want to rely on you financially. Of course. And she hesitated. I want to start therapy. There's a lot I need to work through. The streets leave marks that don't fade easily. I fully support that. In fact, I think I should do it too. I've carried this guilt for far too long. Sarah smiled, a shy but genuine smile. So, can we try? Slowly. We can try. David agreed. That night after David left, Sarah lay awake thinking. Life had taken so many turns, from abandoned fiancé to homeless, from beggar to respected professional again, and now the possibility of a fresh start with the man who had never left her heart. She picked up her phone and dialed a number she'd saved. Dr. Reynolds, it's Sarah. Are you still taking patients? I'd like to schedule an appointment. It was time to tend to the wounds inside, too. The following weeks brought subtle but meaningful changes. Sarah began therapy, facing old traumas and hurts. David also sought professional help, working through his guilt and the patterns that had led him to run away years ago. Little by little, they began building something new. It wasn't an attempt to reclaim the past, but to create a different future. They went out together, rediscovering the city and each other. You know what's strange? Sarah remarked during dinner one night. I can't see myself as the same person who was going to marry you 15 years ago. Neither am I the same. Yeah, and maybe that's for the best. Those two young people wouldn't have survived what we've been through. Sarah's promotion came with challenges. Managing a team wasn't easy, especially when some co-workers whispered about her past. But she faced it all with dignity. One of the assistants made a comment today, Sarah told David, about how someone like me got the promotion. What did you do? I asked to speak with her privately. I told her yes, I had lived on the streets, but that it taught me about humanity and compassion in a way no college ever could. And if she had a problem with that, she could take it up with management. And what did she say? She apologized. I don't think she expected me to be so direct. David admired this new Sarah. Her time on the streets, as terrible as it had been, had forged a woman of remarkable strength. One Saturday, Sarah suggested something unexpected. I want to go back to the overpass. Why? I need to see some people. Hansmai, I need to say goodbye to that place for good. They went together. The place was just as Sarah remembered, the same makeshift tents, the same difficult smells. But now she saw it with different eyes. Sarah, an elderly woman approached. Girl, you disappeared. We were worried. Hi, Miss Betty, I'm okay. I got off the streets. The news spread quickly. Soon Sarah was surrounded by old companions from her time of hardship. She had brought bags of clothes and food. It's not much, she said, but I wanted to share. David watched, moved as Sarah spoke to each one, asking about their health, their struggles, offering medical advice when she could. That's Charlie over there, Sarah said quietly, pointing to a man standing apart. He protected me in those first days when I knew nothing about surviving on the streets. David walked up to the man and held out his hand. Thank you for looking after her. Charlie seemed surprised, but shook his hand. Sarah's good people. I'm glad she made it out. Before they left, Sarah stopped at the exact spot where she used to sleep. This was it, she said softly. For 3 years, this piece of concrete was my home. Sarah, no, she interrupted. I need to remember, to appreciate what I have now, to never forget how thin the line is between having and not having. They walked back in silence, each processing the experience. Their relationship grew naturally. No rush, no pressure, building solid foundations. Sarah's therapist had warned about the importance of not skipping steps. You two have a complicated history, Dr. Reynolds explained. It's natural to want to make up for lost time, but it's important to process everything that's happened. Sarah took the advice to heart. There were hard days when painful memories surfaced, nightmares of cold nights on the street, of hunger, of fear. David learned to be present without smothering, to support without trying to fix everything. 6 months after they started seeing each other again, something happened that would test their new dynamic. Sarah came home from work, pale and visibly shaken. What happened? I found my brother. David knew she had an older brother, but Sarah rarely spoke of him. He showed up at the hospital, she continued. Found out where I work. He wanted money. What did you do? I told him I didn't have any. He didn't believe me. Said he knew I was back with you, that you were rich. Sarah began to cry. He threatened to tell everyone at the hospital about my past if I didn't give him money. David felt anger but held back, This wasn't the time to react impulsively. "What do you want to do?" Sarah looked at him, surprised. "You're not going to tell me what to do?" "No, it's your decision. I'll support whatever you choose." Sarah thought for a moment. "I won't give in," she decided. "I've lost too much already to emotional blackmail. If he wants to spread it, let him. I'm not ashamed of what I went through." "Are you sure?" "I am. In fact," she straightened her shoulders, "I think I'll get ahead of it. I'll tell my story myself." And that's what she did. At the Monday team meeting, Sarah asked to speak and briefly shared her story. The silence that followed was profound. "I'm telling this," she concluded, "because someone is trying to blackmail me with my past. But I'm not ashamed of having survived. Every experience made me a better professional, more compassionate. If anyone has a problem with it, we can address it now." The head nurse was the first to speak. "Sarah, thank you for sharing. Your courage only confirms we made the right choice promoting you." One by one, her colleagues voiced their support. Some even shared their own stories of overcoming hardships. Sarah's brother showed up at the hospital the next day, but was stopped by security. "How do you feel?" David asked that evening. "Free," Sarah replied. "For the first time in years, truly free." Sarah's courage in facing her past marked a turning point. She began getting involved in social projects, using her experience to help others experiencing homelessness. "I want to create a program," she explained to David. "Basic medical care for the homeless. I know Medicaid should cover it, but the reality is different. Many don't seek help because of shame or bureaucracy." "How can I help?" "You've already helped so much." "Sarah," David interrupted, "we're partners now. Your projects are my projects." Together, they started structuring the idea. David used his business connections, Sarah her experience and knowledge. Within 3 months, they had approval for a pilot program. The first day of service was emotional. They set up a tent in the square where Sarah used to stay. She had convinced some fellow doctors and nurses to volunteer. "Mr. Miller," old Joe from the diner approached, "what a beautiful thing you're doing here." Dozens of people showed up. Some Sarah recognized from her time on the streets. She treated them with the same professionalism and kindness she gave to hospital patients. "You saved my life," a woman said at the end of the day. "Not just today. 2 years ago, when you taught me about that tea for infections, remember?" Sarah remembered, and she realized that even in her worst moments, she had made a difference. The project grew. They secured corporate sponsorships and city support. Soon, they were operating 3 times a week in different locations. A year after rekindling their relationship, David asked the question he'd been holding on to. "Marry me?" They were in Sarah's apartment, quietly having dinner. "David, I know I ran away last time," he continued, "but I'm not that man anymore, and I'm not asking on impulse. I've thought about this a lot." Sarah set her utensils down. "I've thought about it too," she admitted. "A lot. And? I need to tell you something." She took a deep breath. "I went to the doctor last week. I had some symptoms. David, I can't have children. The years on the streets, malnutrition, untreated infections, they caused damage." David stood and knelt beside her, taking her hands. "Sarah, I want to marry you, not for the children we might have, for you. But you always wanted a family." "You are my family," he said. "And if we want children, we can adopt. There are so many kids who need love." Sarah cried then, tears of relief and love. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Sarah Johnson, will you marry me? Again?" Between laughter and tears, she said yes. The wedding was simple, unlike the grand event planned 15 years earlier. Just close friends, a few co-workers, and surprisingly, some people Sarah had met on the streets who had managed to rebuild their lives. "That seems right," Sarah said, looking at the diverse group of guests. "Our story isn't conventional, so why should the wedding be?" Miss Betty from the viaduct was one of the bridesmaids. She had managed to get off the streets through Sarah's project and now worked as a cook. "You gave me hope when I had none," she told David. "Now we're even." The honeymoon was at a simple inn in Savannah, Sarah's hometown. "I wanted to show you where I came from," she explained as they walked along the cobblestone streets. "Before everything happened." They visited the house where she grew up, now occupied by another family, the cemetery where her parents were buried. Sarah left flowers and introduced David formally. "Mom, Dad, this is David. You didn't approve the first time, but I think you would now. He saved me. Not in the way you'd expect by supporting me, but by giving me the dignity to save myself." Back in Denver, they settled into a routine. Sarah stayed in the apartment David had lent her, now officially their home. David kept his own apartment as an office. "I like it here," Sarah explained. "This place marks my fresh start. I don't want to leave." The homeless outreach project expanded. They secured a permanent space, donated by a businessman moved by their story. Sarah coordinated everything in her free time, training volunteers, organizing campaigns. "You should do this full-time," David suggested one day. "I can't leave the hospital. I need the salary." "What if the project had funding to hire you as coordinator?" Sarah looked at him skeptically. "David, it wouldn't be charity," he explained. "I got a meeting with the Hope Foundation. They're looking for social projects to support. If they approve, we'll have funds to hire a permanent team." The meeting was a success. Sarah presented the project with passion and expertise. The numbers spoke for themselves. Hundreds of people served, dozens who had gotten off the streets with proper medical care. "It's more than physical health," Sarah told the foundation directors. "It's about restoring dignity. When you treat someone with respect, when you care for their pain without judgment, you give back the humanity the streets took away." They approved funding for 3 years. Sarah cried when she got the news. "I'll be able to dedicate myself fully," she told David. "I'll be able to make a real difference." "You already do. But now I can do more." The transition wasn't easy. Leaving the security of the hospital was scary, but Sarah had learned to face her fears. The official opening of the Homeless Support and Healthcare Center was an emotional event. Sarah gave a speech that moved everyone present. "5 years ago, I slept under a viaduct," she began. "Today, I run a center that will help people in the same situation. Life comes full circle, and sometimes the worst experiences prepare us for our true purpose." The center offered not just medical care, but help with documentation, psychological support, and job placement. Sarah insisted on hiring some people who had lived on the streets. "They understand," she explained. "They know how to approach others, earn trust. It's different when the hand reaching out has been on the other side." One day, covering the front desk due to staff shortages, Sarah got a surprise. A well-dressed woman walked in hesitantly. "Can I help you?" Sarah asked without looking up, focused on paperwork. "Sarah?" She raised her eyes and saw Jennifer, her cousin. "Jennifer, what are you doing here?" I saw the article in the paper about the center, about you. I came to apologize." Sarah studied her. Jennifer seemed genuinely remorseful. "You don't have to." "Yes, I do," Jennifer insisted. "I was a coward. When you needed me most, I turned my back. I have no excuses. I just wanted to say I'm sorry." Sarah sighed. "Sit down," she gestured to a chair. "Want some coffee?" They talked for an hour. Jennifer shared about the pressure from her husband, the fear of losing her lifestyle if she helped. Sarah listened without judgment. "I don't hold any grudges," she said at the end. "Life's too short for that. But we also can't go back to who we were. Too much has happened." "I understand," Jennifer stood up. "Just, if you ever need anything at all, I'd like to help. The center, I mean." Sarah smiled. "We always need volunteers. If you're serious, come Monday at 8. We're training new volunteers." Jennifer showed up, and she kept showing up. Over time, she became one of the most dedicated volunteers. "It's my way of making amends," she confessed one day. "You don't need to make amends for anything," Sarah replied, "but I appreciate the help." 2 years after the center opened, Sarah received unexpected recognition. She was nominated for the Women Making a Difference Award by the city. "I can't believe it," she told David. "Me? An award. You deserve it, he hugged her. You deserve this and so much more. The ceremony was emotional. Sarah brought some of the center's beneficiaries. When her name was called, the crowd gave a standing ovation. This award isn't mine, she said at the microphone. It belongs to everyone who believed a fresh start was possible, to everyone who reached out when I was at my lowest, and most of all, to everyone still on the streets, fighting to survive. This award is proof that there's hope. Amid the applause, Sarah saw David in the front row, tears in his eyes. Beside him were Ms. Betty, Charlie, and so many others who had shared her journey. That night at home, Sarah gazed at the trophy. You know what's most incredible, she said to David. If someone had told me 5 years ago that I'd be here, married to you, running a support center, receiving awards, I would have laughed. It seemed impossible, but you never gave up. There were days I wanted to, she admitted, days when it felt easier to just disappear. But something kept me going. Maybe hope, maybe stubbornness, maybe love. Love? Yes, Sarah hugged him. Even when I thought I hated you, love was there, waiting, like a seed in winter, waiting for spring to bloom again. The center grew. They opened a second location, then a third. Sarah traveled, giving talks, sharing the model. It became a national reference for compassionate care for the homeless. But the most special moment came 3 years later. Sarah, the center's social worker called her. There's a situation here that needs your attention. It was a teenager, 16 years old, pregnant, kicked out of her home, scared, lost, with no prospects. Hi, Sarah approached gently. I'm Sarah. Want to talk? The girl, Emily, shared her story through tears. Religious parents, teenage pregnancy, rejection. She'd been on the streets for a week. We'll take care of you, Sarah promised, you and the baby. She supported Emily throughout the pregnancy, found her shelter, prenatal care, counseling, but Emily was determined. She couldn't raise the baby. I want him to have a chance, she said, a real family. Sarah and David exchanged glances. They'd talked about adoption, but never taken concrete steps. Sarah began hesitantly. We'd like to adopt. Emily studied them for a long moment. You took care of me when no one else would. I can't imagine better people for my son. The process was long and bureaucratic, but when Nathan was born and Sarah held him for the first time, it was all worth it. Hi, my love, she whispered. Your story starts differently, but it's going to be beautiful, I promise. Emily stayed in touch. She finished school with the center's help, found a job. She visited Nathan regularly, like a special aunt. You saved both of us, she told Sarah one day. Gave me the dignity to choose and gave him amazing parents. The boy grew up surrounded by love and social awareness. From an early age, he would accompany Sarah to downtown, playing with other children and learning that everyone deserves respect and dignity. Mommy, he asked at 5 years old, why do some people live on the street? It's complicated, sweetheart, Sarah explained patiently. Sometimes life gets hard. But that's why our work is important, to help those people find a new path. When I grow up, I want to help too. I'm sure you will, Sarah hugged him. One Sunday afternoon, the family was at the square where it all began. Nathan played on the playground while Sarah and David watched from a bench, the same bench where they had reunited years before. Can you imagine, Sarah said, if you hadn't stopped that day? I'd rather not think about it, David replied. That moment changed everything. Yeah, it really did. Sarah watched Nathan running around. From a beggar to a mother, a wife, a social project coordinator. Sometimes it still feels like a dream. The best kind of dream, David kissed her. The one that comes true. Sarah's phone rang. It was the center. Dr. Johnson, we have an emergency. A woman just arrived. She's in really bad shape. I'm on my way. Sarah stood up. Mommy has to work, Nathan asked. Just for a little while, sweetie. Someone needs help. Then you have to go, the boy said seriously. Helping is important. Sarah smiled. She was raising her son right. At the center, she found a woman in critical condition, malnourished, feverish, clearly homeless for a long time. What's your name? Sarah asked gently. Amanda, the The voice was weak. "Hi, Amanda. We're going to take care of you, okay?" As the team worked, Sarah held the woman's hand, remembering when she had been on the other side, desperately needing someone to care. "Everything's going to be okay," she promised. "I know it seems impossible now, but it will get better, I promise." Amanda squeezed her hand weakly, tears streaming down. Moments like this were why Sarah did what she did. Every person they helped was a chance for change, a chance to rewrite a story. Later, at home, Nathan waited for her with a drawing. "I made this for you, Mommy. It's you helping people." In the child's drawing, Sarah looked like a superhero, surrounded by smiling faces. "It's beautiful, sweetheart." "Daddy said you're a real hero," Nathan continued, "that you've saved lots of people." "I'm not a hero," Sarah corrected gently, "just someone who understands the pain and tries to ease it a little." David appeared in the doorway. "How's Amanda?" "Stable. She'll need a lot of care, but she'll make it." "Like you did." "Like I did," Sarah agreed, "with help, dignity, and a second chance." That night, after putting Nathan to bed, Sarah and David stayed on the porch, looking at the city. 15 years, Sarah said suddenly. "What?" "Exactly 15 years today, since the day you ran away." David fell silent, processing. "I'd forgotten the date." "I never did. For years, this day was the worst of the year. Now," she smiled, "now it's just a date. The day our first story ended so a better one could begin." "Sarah, No," she interrupted. "You don't have to apologize anymore. I forgave you a long time ago. I forgave you and I forgave myself. What matters is now. And now is perfect." David pulled her close. "No," Sarah corrected. "It's not perfect. Nathan will wake up soon from a nightmare. Tomorrow we'll have problems at the center to solve. And my cousin wants to organize a family lunch that's going to be super awkward. But it's real, it's ours, and it's wonderful." David laughed. "True, reality always beats perfection." A cry came from Nathan's room. "Mommy!" "Told you." Sarah stood up. "Here I go." "Here we go," David corrected, rising too. They found Nathan sitting up in bed, scared. "I dreamed you disappeared," he said tearfully. Sarah and David sat on either side of the bed. "We'll never disappear," Sarah assured. "I promise." "Pinky promise?" Nathan extended his little finger. "Pinky promise." Sarah linked her finger with his. "Mine too," David did the same. Nathan settled down, nestled between his parents. "Tell me a story?" he asked. "How about the story of the brave woman who overcame everything?" David suggested, winking at Sarah. "Yes," Nathan perked up. Sarah began telling a softened version of her own story, about loss and gain, falling and rising, the importance of kindness and second chances. When Nathan finally fell asleep, they returned to their room. "You're an amazing storyteller," David remarked. "It's easy when you've lived the story," Sarah replied. Lying down, Sarah reflected on her journey, from the hopeful young woman abandoned at the altar to the woman who slept under overpasses, from the beggar eating scraps to the respected project coordinator, from the broken woman to the fulfilled mother and wife. "What are you thinking about?" David asked. "How unpredictable life is. If someone had told me that day in the church that one day I'd be here, happy, with you and our son," she shook her head. "Winning the lottery would have seemed more likely. But it happened." "Yeah, it did. Through a lot of pain, true, but it happened." "Was it worth it?" David asked seriously. "All the suffering?" Sarah thought for a long moment. "I don't know if any suffering is worth it. I wish I hadn't gone through it. But since I did, yes, it brought good things. It gave me strength, purpose, it gave me Nathan, and ironically it brought you back to me, different, better." "I love you," David said simply. "I love you too, in a different way than before, more mature, more real." The next day brought new challenges, funding issues at the center, a whole family needing shelter, volunteers missing. Sarah handled it all with the calm of someone who had faced worse. "How do you do it?" the new assistant asked. "You never lose your cool." "When you've lost everything," Sarah explained, "you learn that few problems are truly insurmountable. There's always a solution, even if it's not the ideal one." At lunch, she got an unexpected call. "Sarah, this is the producer from Americans Who Inspire. We'd like to feature your work." Sarah hesitated. Media attention always made her uneasy. "I don't know. It'd be a chance to promote the center, gain more support," the producer insisted. It was true. Reluctantly, Sarah agreed. The filming was intense. Reliving her story publicly wasn't easy, but when they showed the center's impact, the testimonials of those helped, Sarah understood its importance. "My story is just one of thousands," she told the cameras. "What matters is that every person on the streets has a story, a life before, dreams, hopes. Our job is to help them rewrite their endings." The episode aired on a Sunday. Sarah watched at home, surrounded by family. Nathan was proud seeing his mom on TV. "Famous, Mommy," he exclaimed. "I'm not famous," Sarah corrected, "just trying to make a difference." The response was bigger than expected. Donations poured in from across the country. Volunteers signed up in droves. Other cities asked for advice to replicate the model. "Looks like we'll need to expand further," David commented, scanning emails. "One step at a time," Sarah replied. "I don't want to lose the heart of our work by growing too fast." It was wise. Sarah had learned sustainable change came slowly. On the center's 5th anniversary, they held a special event. Formerly homeless individuals who had rebuilt their lives shared their stories. It was an afternoon of emotion and hope. Amanda, the woman Sarah had helped years earlier, was one of the speakers. She had recovered, found a job, and rented a home. "When I first got here, I thought I was going to die," she shared. "Dr. Sarah held my hand and told me I'd get better. I didn't believe her, but there was something in her eyes, like she truly understood. Later, I found out she really did. And if she had made it, so could I." Sarah wiped away her tears discreetly. The event ended with the unveiling of a plaque, "Sarah Johnson Support and Healthcare Center." The tribute had been the team's idea. "You didn't have to," Sarah protested, emotional. "Yes, we did," the assistant coordinator replied. "You're the soul of this place." Nathan tugged at his mother's skirt. "Mommy, your name's on the wall." "Yes, sweetheart, it is. When I grow up, I want my name on a wall too, for doing good things." "I'm sure you will," Sarah hugged him. Life went on. Good days and bad, victories and defeats. But Sarah faced everything with the calm of someone who knows the extremes of human experience. One rainy morning, she was at the center when a new volunteer called her. "Dr. Sarah, there's a man here asking to speak with you. Says it's urgent." Sarah went to the reception and stopped, stunned. It was Robert, her brother. She hadn't seen him since the blackmail attempt years before. He looked visibly older, worn down. "Sarah," his voice was different, without the old arrogance. "Robert, what are you doing here?" He hesitated. "I need help." Sarah studied him. The worn-out clothes, the defeated look. Life had taken its toll. "Come," she said simply. "Let's talk in my office." Robert told her about his downfall. Failed businesses, debts, losing everything. His wife had left him. His kids wanted nothing to do with him. "I've been staying at a friend's place," he admitted, "but he asked me to leave by the end of the month." "And you came to me," Sarah stated, without judgment. "I have no one else." Robert hung his head. "I know I don't deserve anything from you. What I did, how I treated you, and it was unforgivable." Sarah stayed silent for a long moment. "Nothing is unforgivable," she finally said. "But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. You abandoned me when I needed you most, tried to blackmail me when I got back on my feet. Why should this time be different? Because now I understand." Robert had tears in his eyes. "I understand the desperation, the fear, the humiliation. Sarah, I'm sorry for everything." Sarah took a deep breath. It would be easy to send him away, to return the indifference she'd received, but that wasn't who she'd become. "The center has a job reintegration program," she said. "I can include you, but the rules are strict. Vocational training, mandatory therapy, volunteer work. Do you accept?" Robert looked at her in disbelief. You'll help me? After everything?" "I'm not doing it for you," Sarah clarified. "I'm doing it because I believe everyone deserves a second chance. But it's the last one, understood? Understood, Robert nodded vigorously. Sarah, No, she cut him off. I don't want thanks or promises. I want action. Starts tomorrow, 8 sharp. Don't be late. Robert left the office visibly moved. Sarah stayed behind, processing the encounter. David found her like that later. I heard Robert was here. Yeah, life's full of ironies. Are you okay? I am, Sarah smiled tiredly. It's strange, but I am. You know, for years I imagined this moment, what I'd say, how I'd get even. But when it happened, all I saw was a broken man who needed help. You're extraordinary, David hugged her. No, I just learned that carrying anger is too heavy a burden, and I've carried enough for a lifetime. Robert surprised everyone. He was always punctual, actively participating in the programs. In group sessions, he shared his story with humility. I abandoned my sister when she needed me most, he confessed in one session. I thought I was protecting my family, but I was just being a coward. Now she's giving me a chance I don't deserve. It's more than gratitude I feel. It's admiration. The relationship between the brothers would never be close again, but there was mutual respect. Robert got a job as an administrative assistant and a small apartment. He visited downtown regularly as a volunteer. You saved him, David remarked one day. He saved himself, Sarah corrected. I just showed him the way. Nathan grew up surrounded by these stories of resilience. At 8 years old, he organized a school drive to collect winter coats. Mom always says small gestures make a difference, he explained to his teacher. Sarah and David were called to the school. You have a special son, the principal said. His social awareness is impressive for his age. He learns by example, Sarah replied proudly. That's true, the principal agreed. That's why we'd like to propose a partnership between the school and the center, a volunteer program for older students, regular campaigns. And so, another branch of their work was born. Young people learning empathy through service. One afternoon, Sarah was reviewing reports when she received an unexpected visitor. An elegant woman in her 70s asked to speak with her. I'm Eleanor Wilson, she introduced herself. I live in New York, but I came specifically to meet you. How can I help? My son, the woman said with tears in her eyes, disappeared 5 years ago, struggles with drugs, depression. I searched everywhere. I saw your story on TV and thought, maybe... Sarah understood. She gently took the woman's hand. What's his name? Andrew Wilson. He's 43 now. Sarah took notes, promised to check the records and ask around among those living on the streets. I can't promise anything, she was honest, but I'll try. For weeks she quietly investigated. Finally, a lead. A man matching the description was living in a squat downtown. Sarah went herself. She found Andrew, unrecognizable from the photo his mother had shown. Thin, prematurely aged, but alive. The conversation was hard. Andrew didn't want contact with his family. He felt shame, guilt. She thinks I'm dead, he said. It's better that way. It's not, Sarah said firmly. Your mother has been in Denver for a month waiting for news. Her pain is real. It took weeks of talking, but Andrew finally agreed to a meeting. Sarah mediated the reunion at the center. It was painful and beautiful. Mother and son crying, asking for each other's forgiveness. Eleanor wouldn't let go of her son's hand. My boy, she kept repeating. My boy has come back. Andrew accepted treatment. Eleanor rented an apartment in Denver to support his recovery. Months later, they were rebuilding their relationship. You gave me back my son, Eleanor told Sarah. How can I thank you for that? Seeing the two of you together is thanks enough. Stories like these multiplied. The center was more than a place for care. It was a space for reunions, fresh starts, everyday miracles. Sarah turned 50. The occasion was marked by a big celebration at the center. Hundreds of people came. Look at this, she said to David. Who would have thought the homeless woman from the square would have a party like this? You weren't homeless, Nathan, now 12, corrected her. You were someone temporarily without a home. You taught me the difference. Sarah hugged her son, moved by his maturity. During the party, person after person shared how Sarah had impacted their lives. Former homeless individuals now employed, families reunited, volunteers transformed by the experience. My gift, David announced, is the expansion of the center. I got approval from the city for the lot next door. We'll be able to double our capacity. Sarah cried. It was the best gift possible. Life went on. Nathan entered his teens, holding on to the values he'd learned. He chose medicine as his career. I want to be like you, he told his mother. Someone who heals not just the body, but the dignity of people. Sarah watched proudly as her son took each step. When he was accepted into the same university where she had studied decades before, the circle was complete. It's strange being here, Sarah remarked on campus. So many memories. Good ones? Nathan asked. They are now. Sarah smiled. Time has that power. It turns even the worst memories into stepping stones of our story. Robert remained close by. He had remarried, rebuilt his life. At family gatherings, he always silently gave thanks for the second chance he'd been given. The center became a national model. Sarah traveled to give talks, but she always returned to hands-on work. It was on the streets, in human connection, that she found purpose. During one of these trips in Washington, D.C., she was surprised with a tribute in Congress. The bill creating a national program based on her model was named the Sarah Johnson Act. It's surreal, she told David over the phone. My name on a federal law. You've earned it, he replied. You've changed how this country sees the homeless. It wasn't just me. No, David agreed, but you were the spark, living proof that change is possible. Back in Denver, Sarah kept her feet on the ground. Laws mattered, but the real work happened day by day. Dr. Johnson, a new beneficiary, approached her. They say you once lived on the streets too. I did, Sarah confirmed simply. How did you get out? Sarah sat beside him. One day at a time, with help, with dignity. And most of all, believing I deserved a better life. We all do. The man began to cry. It's been so long since anyone told me that. Well, I'm telling you now, and we'll prove it together. At 60, Sarah decided to slow down. She passed the center's executive leadership to her assistant, staying on as an advisor. Time to make room for new energy, she explained. But she never fully stepped away. 3 times a week, she was there, listening, talking, being present. Nathan graduated with honors. In his commencement speech, he honored his parents. I learned medicine from books, but I learned humanity at home. From a mother who turned her deepest pain into a tool for healing, and a father who proved true love waits and rebuilds. Sarah and David wept in each other's arms. Their first granddaughter arrived when Sarah was 65. Nathan and his wife, also a doctor, named her Hope in honor of resilience. I'm a grandma now, Sarah marveled, cradling the baby. Who would have thought? The best grandma in the world, David declared. Sarah brought Hope to the center, teaching her early about service. Hope grew up in those halls, playing with other children, learning that everyone deserves equal dignity. One day at 5, she asked, Grandma, why do you help people? Because once I needed help too, Sarah explained. And someone helped me. Now it's my turn to give back. When I grow up, I'll help too. I know you will, sweetheart. Sarah reflected on the legacy they'd built. Not just the center now with 10 locations across the state, not just the thousands of lives transformed, but the shift in mindset, the humanization of how people saw the homeless. It was worth it, she told David one quiet evening. What? Everything. The pain, the fall, the fight to rise. Look what we built from the wreckage. You built it. We, Sarah corrected. None of this would exist without you, without that moment in the square when you stopped, when you chose not to look away. David kissed her gently. It was the best moment of my life, the moment I began becoming who I was meant to be. Sarah smiled, nestling into his arms. Outside, the city slept, but she knew. Under bridges, in parks, on sidewalks, people were fighting to survive. And tomorrow, the center would be there, offering not just food or shelter, but something more precious, Hope, because Sarah learned that life can take everything from you: home, money, status, health. But as long as there's breath, there's a chance to start over. And sometimes the worst moments are just the prelude to the best ones. Her story, which began with abandonment and pain, turned into inspiration and service. The circle was complete, yet it kept expanding, touching lives, changing destinies. And somewhere in the city, someone slept on the street, thinking it was the end. Little did they know that tomorrow could be the beginning of everything. The end of the story. And what did you think of this journey of resilience, dear listener? Let us know in the comments if you believe in the power of new beginnings. Your opinion means so much to us. Thank you for being with us.